Christine Lagarde has spent the past 8 years bailing out troubled economies as the world's lender of last resort. Now the finance rock star is poised to step down as the head of the International Monetary Fund to lead the European Central Bank.
Yes, it is time to fix the roof.
Lagarde is one of 4 people the heads of EU member states have nominated to lead the bloc's monetary, trade and foreign policies if they get the backing of the European Parliament. EU members have also chosen German politician Ursula von der Leyen to serve as the next president of the European Commission. Belgian Prime Minister Charles Michel has been nominated to succeed Donald Tusk as the European Council president. And Spain's acting foreign minister Josep Borrell is set to take over as the bloc's top diplomat. EU leaders say ensuring gender equity at the helm is one of the reasons for their choices.
I want gender balance. I want for gender balance that we have in these 4 top jobs where we decide as council 2 men and 2 women.
As the EU central banker, Lagarde will be faced with some major challenges. She'll have to commandeer the banking system as it loses a major financial hub, London, with the UK set to leave the EU in October. She'll have to minimize the impact of rising US tariffs and other financial restrictions on the EU and its trading partners. And she'll have to work with debt-ridden economies like Italy. While the European Commission has for now decided against taking disciplinary action over Rome's high public deficit, it's still at risk of running foul of the EU's financial rules. But Lagarde is not an economist, and some analysts say she may battle with these challenges.
She's a former politician. She has never worked as a central banker before, so the in-depth, some of the more macroeconomic questions and questions in relation to policies she might struggle with. And if that is the case, and if there is some signs of weakness at a future press conferences down the line, that might actually weaken the currency.
As IMF chief, Lagarde's fix for broken economies included austerity measures, hiking taxes, and building up US dollar reserves. But countries like Greece, Italy and Spain are fed up with years of belt tightening and could push back if she applies the same economic model. That could leave the rock star of finance between a rock and a hard place. Mobin Nasir, TRT World.
Well, let's get more on this now with Lorenzo Codogno in London. He's chief economist at LC Macro Advisors and the former chief economist of the Italian Treasury. Welcome back to Money Talks, Lorenzo. Now, as we heard there, she really has cemented her prominence as a leading figure in international finance, but she is or will be the first ECB chief without monetary policy and who doesn't have an economist background. Do you think she's the right person for the job?
Well, it seems to be a kind of global trend. We have seen Powell in the States and also other cases across the globe. Definitely, in such an important position, you need to have a very good communication skills, and certainly Christine Lagarde ticks that box. On top of that, you need to have a very good understanding of the policymakers' world, and certainly Lagarde also qualifies very well for that role. But you are right, she doesn't have a central bank's background, and that might be problematic. I think it would be key for her to build up a strong team around her. So an executive board around Philip Lane, the chief economist, that is strong enough to support her in all events. That, I think, is the best recipe to be successful at the ECB.
Okay, so in addition to building a strong team, as you've suggested, if the EU Parliament does approve Christine Lagarde to be the next ECB chief, what other challenges will she have to face?
Well, I think the IMF has consistently backed the ECB policy over the past few years, so I don't expect major changes in ECB policies, but the challenges are huge. As you know, President Draghi already hinted at a possible shift in policy in Sintra just a few days ago. And should the economy continue to slow, there might well be something that must be decided before the end of this year. And we know that non-orthodox tools become less and less effective. So I think the big challenge of the ECB and Christine Lagarde will be to respond with monetary tools to an economy which is not performing particularly well, and inflation is not going back to target. That is clearly the major challenge for any central banker, and particularly for the ECB and Christine Lagarde going forward.
Yes, as you say, Mario Draghi did hint at that conference in Sintra that the ECB was looking to further ease monetary policy, and many people have interpreted that to mean either a cut in interest rates or perhaps reviving the ECB's extensive bond buying program. Do you think she'll go down that track?
I think it will very much depend on forthcoming economic data. So I think the ECB policy will be data dependent going forward. Clearly, on the interest rate side, there is limited scope. The ECB is already at -40 in terms of the deposit rate. And we know that the lowest it can get is probably close to the Swiss National Bank, -0.75. So there is not much leeway there. So clearly, if there is a need to deliver a lot of policy accommodation, the ECB will have no choice but to reactivate the asset purchase program, which would be very controversial and would be very embarrassing if done immediately. But over time, I think it's the only way to kind of provide additional stimulus. Finally, I think don't forget creativity, because I think there are many things that a central bank can do. Clearly, the more you go into a kind of uncharted territory, the less effective monetary policy becomes. But there are other potential ways that the ECB can actually deliver accommodation if there is a need for that.
Now, there's some concern that the ECB's immunity from political influence might be affected by the appointment of a former French finance minister. Do you think Christine Lagarde will have to prove that she's independent?
Possibly. We have already De Guindos, the vice president of the ECB, who is a politician. So certainly it would raise some eyebrows, so to speak. And Christine Lagarde will be tested. I have no doubt, however, that she will perform completely independently once she got the mandate. So in that regard, I don't think that the independence of the ECB is in any danger going forward.
OK, we'll keep an eye on whether the EU Parliament does approve her appointment. Lorenzo Codogno in London, thank you as always.